Hey, how are ya? Cody here with Truly Canadian Gaming. Today I thought I'd take a few minutes out and tell you about Pokemon. That's right, we're going all the way back to about 1998 when my parents hated that I spent all of my free time giving two damns about tiny pieces of cardboard. So today we're going to talk about vintage Pokemon specifically. I'm not into Pokemon anymore, but I have a huge part of my heart given to nostalgic Pokemon. So, my entire Pokemon collection is not very large. It's almost entirely dedicated to stuff I played when I was a kid for nostalgia. So, my Yu-Gi-Oh! Collection is growing and changes, and I play different decks. Not for me, Pokemon. Pokemon for me was the game that got me into any type of TCG. I genuinely enjoyed collecting the cards, I enjoyed playing the cards, and I enjoyed trading the cards. Trading card game. So my friends and I would actually play the real game. And we're going to go all the way back to early 1998, roughly, when a friend of mine came to me on the playground and asked if I would trade one of my crazy bones. Yes, the crazy bones. For one of these. A Nidoran. This was the first Pokemon card I ever got. It was brand new on our playground. No one had ever heard of it. There was like 3 kids that had cards because they knew somebody who said, "This is really fun, you guys should be doing this." And I traded him one of my crazy bones for this. Which I'd like to point out that I actually really like that game. You throw this silly little thing, and you try and judge how it's going to bounce, and you take your opponent's like high test marbles. Crazy Bones was. But my friend says to me, "I'll trade you your, yellow Crazy Bone for this card. It's called a Pokemon." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" He was like, "Well, look at it." And he hands me this. So I go through with the trade, because I like the artwork of it. And we end up, let's say a month down the road, as a school, the whole school ends up in Pokemon craze, like everywhere else in North America. You know, we're up in Canada, there's a lot of jokes about us being behind the times, and maybe we're just a little bit, but when this hit, it hit. And as a 9-year-old kid in 1998, that's right, I just told you my birthday, technically, or your birth year. This was the best thing you get into because it was supposed to be. What an awesome catchphrase. Gotta catch 'em all. What a great way to sell your product. By telling everyone they need to have all of them. So, I remember this. I remember figuring it out pretty quick. 40 HP. I played some video games. Health points. 30 does damage. Now this was fun though. I remember as a kid thinking, weakness. It's an eye. It's a psychic symbol. But as a kid, I thought if you hit him in the eye, you got extra damage. For reasons. But that was the first Pokemon card I ever got. That, sadly, is not the actual card. I haven't seen those cards in years. I could probably track them down if I really cared. I don't. That is just one that I've accumulated since. So we're going to fast forward a couple months. My older cousin Ryan gets a hold of me. And he was a Magic the Gathering fan. And he finds out that Wizards is doing this new game and is aimed at a younger audience. So he jumps on board. So Ryan buys the starter deck, the original. So this was the deck where you would take your fire guys and you would fight them against the fighting guys. They all came with a Machamp first edition. They're not that exciting. And you split the deck into two 30-card decks and you would practice. And we used to do that every week. We would take these two 30-card decks and practice. I always got the fire deck because he was older and wanted the big stupid monster. Had a lot of fun. Learned how to play the basics of the game right away. I think probably before Jungle was even out. And like it was fun. I hung out with my cousin. That was super nice. Like, him and I still talk. We're still friends. But I got to learn how to, add, subtract, go through the rules, play a card game. I had a lot of fun. So we used to play each other. And then we moved on, as time went on, and built different decks. I had slightly better access than he did. He was in his early years of high school at that point, and it was not the game you would play. It made you a nerd. It made you weird. It was a kid's game. It was supposed to be a kid's game. So he had a hard time getting cards. But he ended up building a fairly good deck that I always had a hard time beating him with. And I would build all the decks in the world. I was the target audience. This was the only thing that mattered in my world. My friends and I would get together. They'd come over and stay at my house. I'd stay at their house. We'd go camp all summer in the tents. And we would build decks, play against each other, eat chips, drink pop. We had no idea what a sleeve was. And we had a hell of a good time. And we were the only kids in school that actually played the proper game. Because my older cousin had taught me how, I could teach them how, and we actually got to play the real, proper battling game. And that was probably the best part of it. So we're going to keep going forward here, and I ended up with again, not the actual card. It's in a hard case. Not because I wanted to have it in there for the video, but because it's glued shut and I can't pry it open without breaking the case, and don't really care to at this point. It's something I got off eBay a while ago. It's a shadowlesss Gyarados. It's cool. It's my favorite card. Magikarp was one of my first cards after the Nidoran mail, and then I had to get a Gyarados. Gyarados was one of the first holos. It might have actually been the first holo I ever got. I'm not 100% sure. And I've always liked it. I've always liked the water and sea monsters and all that nonsense. And it's big, stupid water dragon. It does massive damage. At least it used to. And it evolved from the dumbest, worst guy in the game. It's just fun. That just makes for a fun card. So that was one of my favorites, and I will still remember standing exactly where I stood trading for it, just outside the main entrance. It cost me way too much. I traded with one of the other kids, but I had one. And every deck from that moment on was centered around Gyarados. I think I eventually got up to 3, was all I could trade for at my school. There's a couple kids with them, but they wanted too much because they knew I wanted them. But every deck I built had a Gyarados in it. And Magikarp, obviously. Because it was the boss. It was awesome. And, well, honestly, it's just a really cool, great card with good artwork. So, yeah, everything I had was Gyarados based forever. A lot of it was grass. And when you look at the old sets, there's a lot of grass cards, so it's easy to accumulate them because both poison and leaf type became grass. And that's alright. So, we're going to keep going here, probably about a year later, maybe a little less, and we're going to get into one of the new sets comes out. And I didn't live in town. So the idea of being able to walk around by myself and go to stores was just totally obtuse. But my friend Mitchell could. He would walk home. He'd stop at a couple stores on the way. He'd do whatever. And one of the local stores was opening packs and selling the commons and the uncommons for, I think, $0.25 each. So I remember sending my friend Mitchell, because I couldn't, because I got on the bus and went home back to the country, to the store, and said to him, with my milk money, that is an actual thing, I had $2 that my mother had sent me to school on milk day, which I believe was Thursdays, in the 4th grade or so, to get a carton of chocolate milk. And I didn't use it. I gave it to Mitchell, and Mitchell went, and my only, stipulation, knowing that they should have them, was get me 4 cards at 25 cents each. One of them has to be, a Kabuto. Not because it's good, but because it's a fossil Pokemon. I was the biggest dinosaur geek ever. And then when we found out that they were going to do fossil with Chad Pokemon based on, actual fossils. So Kabuto is based off of not an Ammonite, sorry. So you have Kabuto, which is based off of a trilobite fossil, one of the most common in the world. And Ammonite based off of the Ammonite fossil, one of the other most commons. And then Aerodactyl being kind of your more generic. It's a dinosaur, but it's not cards. It's got wings because old dragons and stuff, and it's cool. But you had fossil Pokemon. And I remember very specifically him coming back with 2 copies of him and 2 of the mysterious fossils that you need to put him out, and 4 other cards. They didn't have any Ammonite. And I was so excited. It was the best $2 I'd ever spent. That just gave me one of the coolest cards ever. Didn't matter that it was useless. I played the game. My friends and I, we played against each other. I knew I couldn't use this card. I wanted to build a deck around it so bad, and it was so terrible. And yeah, I'll always remember Mitchell coming back. And Mitchell actually also got me into Magic the Gathering about a year later. He was a really nice guy. And he played Magic, and he needed somebody else to play with. And I don't know if it was a cousin or an uncle of his was selling a bunch of Magic cards. I'm sure they were worth absolutely nothing. And if I got them all for $5, I got enough to build a deck. A big chunk of lands. This is maybe for another video, but it's fun. So Mitchell got me kind of into Magic. I bought a big chunk of cards from them. Built a really terrible deck because I didn't really know how to play, and vaguely learned how to play the rules. All of 20 years ago. But yeah, no, he got me my Kabuto. My 5th card, I believe, we went through today. Yep, 5th card of Classic Nostalgia. But yeah, I mean, we played Pokemon up until, let's say, Neo Genesis came out. Because it was the new region, which we all had the video game. The card game was maybe 6 months behind it with the new Pokemon monsters. And 6 months later, by that time, we just hit that point that it was getting stale and old. And we didn't want to get all the new ones, and we didn't care. They weren't as cool as the originals. I know, first gener. But we just didn't care anymore. It wasn't exciting, and we were getting a little bit older. And that's kind of where it stopped for us, was Neo Genesis. But yeah, those first couple sets, were just the bomb. And yeah, we played. and we had a lot of fun. It's a lot of nostalgia for me. So I do love my vintage Pokemon. Everything that came out involving that first generation, that explosion, I was that kid. I, my parents couldn't get me an N64. We couldn't afford it. My buddy had one. It was the coolest thing ever. We used to go play Pokemon Snap. Absolutely brilliant. What else did we used to do that was great? We used to play like the card game. We'd trade with each other. We'd run around the woods and around the docks at my family's marina, and we would pretend to catch them, and pretend to run through the woods, and you'd find something in the tall grass, and it was exciting. We did stuff like that. It was a really good game, and I still do it as an adult, but only the vintage. I've got a battle cube we can go through at some point. I've got a lot of sealed product we can look over. I got a bunch of loose product. I don't even know what half of it is anymore. But I still love Pokemon. And my friend Chris and I, who have played together for 20 years now, we'll still get together. We'll break out that battle cube, and we will battle like it's 1999 again with Pop and Chips. Anyway, thank you for listening to my video. Thank you for listening to me ramble for a bit there. Try and cut it down in post and make it not as terrible. But yeah, just a little like background into what I like about Pokemon. Why to me it's important, and why it's the original TCG for me. Magic came out first, for sure. And then it was Pokemon, and then it was Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, there's a lot in between. But for me, that's the order it kind of went in as well. Like, I knew about Magic, didn't play it, and then I played Pokemon. Then I tried Magic, I tried Yu-Gi-Oh!, and for the betterment of like 15 years, I didn't play any of them. 10 years at least. And then now, yeah, I'm an adult and I love the hell out of TCGs. Definitely recommend it. Anyway, thank you for listening. We'll cut this down. We'll make it not as terrible in post. We've got these beautiful cards here. Small piece of my collection at this point. And, yeah, if you like this, hit it with a like. Don't be afraid to subscribe. We're going to have some deck battles. More talks about vintage Pokemon. Some talks about Yu-Gi-Oh! A bit of what I like about Magic the Gathering. And what I think it brings versus other TCGs. And if everything goes well, I might just keep making videos.